And well, there goes the recording. I don't have a big role here tonight, but I just want to thank all of our candidates for coming out and going for a spot on the board. We really appreciate your efforts here and look forward from hearing from you. I'd like to thank our governance committee, which is led by Jackson, who was our clerk. And I'm going to just hand it right over to Jackson so we can get going here. Jackson, you're muted as well.
All right, a little bit better there. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and good evening or afternoon, whichever the case may be for you. Special thanks to the candidates for being here and standing for election. I'm, as Bo said, Jackson DuBois, clerk of the board, and this is a TFG live event where we're going to meet the candidates and have an opportunity to get to know a little bit about them. We have 6 candidates running for 4 seats, so not everyone who's before us today will end up serving on the board of directors this time around, but as we all know, there's plenty of ways to help the Guild carry out its good work, including helping with community builds and serving on committees, which I'm excited to say are seeing some positive activity. So anyone interested in joining a committee and getting involved, whether a candidate or just a member, please reach out to any board member or staff to get more info. This election opens on October 17th and is going to run through November 17th. So right after the conference in Burlington, it's going to open up. Let's see, present board members. We've got Autumn, Jim, Bo, of course, Brenda always doing her good work, Sandy. Am I missing anybody as far as board members?
Will,
of course, serving double duty here this evening. So this evening's format, I'm going to ask that the candidates take 3 or 4 minutes to introduce themselves and tell us why they're running for this position, why they're running for the board of directors, and then I'll ask a few questions. I'll ask that candidates keep their questions or their responses to the Q&A to 2 minutes or less, just for the sake of time. After I go through a couple of questions, we'll open it up for questions from the members who've joined us. You can either enter it in the chat field or use that raise hand icon that's in there somewhere. And we're a small enough group that you might just be able to chime in, but if it gets unruly, we'll add some order to it. Allison will be helping me field questions on top of all the important work she's doing on the back end to help pull all this together. We'll try to keep the Q&A to around 30 minutes and generally try to keep this meeting under 90 minutes. And I think we're ready for intros. We're going to go alphabetical order by last name, and that puts Michael Cuba at the top of the list. Michael, care to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Jackson. My name is Michael Cuba. I live in southeastern Pennsylvania. I'm a timber framer. I do mostly preservation work, and these days I do a lot of consulting work in dendrochronology. I lived in New England for about 20 years, where I first started timber framing, but I grew up in Pennsylvania and have returned here. I have served previously on the board. It was a fantastic experience, and I had wondered after serving on the board if I would run again and when I might run again. But timing wise, this seems like a good time. I had the itch to get back and do some more service. It's an interesting time for the Guild with the acquisition of Heartwood and having a new home in Alstead. So there's a lot of interesting potential on the horizon that I'd love to be a part of. I have also been involved with publications, as many of you might know. I'm one of the editors of the journal, and I am pretty committed to our written works as well as our physical works. So I've got a lot of experience and institutional knowledge regarding how the Guild works, and so that's why I thought I should try to come back to the board while that information is still relevant and potentially useful.
Thank you so much, Michael. Will, Mr. Denton, the third, fourth?
The fourth. Yeah, I've been a member of the guild for almost 20 years now. Education and with that, the apprenticeship training program is strong to my heart, as well as the community build projects. And I feel like, the relevance of, the guild itself is all based on education, educating others, educating our own, building communities and building other communities. And I'm a graduate of the American College of the Building Arts. Have a bachelor's of applied sciences with a major in timber framing. Led and worked on numerous community build projects and try to do at least one a year, as well as make it down to the Mullins down in Lexington every now and then. And if I'm able to sit a second term with the board, which I hope I am, I'd love to continue that and continue to work with the apprenticeship training program, and also developing our community build projects. Sorry, I skipped over. I live in the Midwest. I live in Illinois. Work for Firmitas with Rick Collins, and we do a little bit of everything from new builds, restoration, commercial work, and just have a lot of fun working with heavy timber.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will. Next alphabetically on the list is Isaac. Isaac, are you with us yet? I see we've got a phone number in here that I don't know whose it is, but if Isaac's still dealing with his emergency, then we are going to jump over to Greg. Greg, are you ready to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm Greg Mullen, or one of the Greg Mullins, from Rockbridge, Baz, or Lexington, Virginia. I'm a machinist, and you had given us some questions. What the Timber Framers Guild means to me, I say that the Guild is an extension of my family. I first came to the Guild when I was in high school about 25 years ago. Some of the most important people in my day-to-day life I've met through the Guild. And the Guild is also important to my business. I make a product for timber framers. And the Guild to me is primarily a place or community for sharing skills and knowledge around timber framing. And also timber frames, one way or another, seem to draw together particularly talented, interesting, fun, and kind people. The Guild's a special bunch of folks. I enjoy being part of the Guild. And then why I'm running, honestly, I'm running because Michael Cuba called and asked me to. And I have a lot of respect for him and his dedication to the Guild. But primarily, I am running to help as I can with Guild projects, to share from the 45+ community timber frame projects that we've hosted here in Virginia, involving Guild members, local folks who often become Guild members, and BMI cadets, among the many different folks that have joined us over the years. The Guild has helped me over the last 25 years, and I believe I can return the favor with some historical knowledge of the Guild as a board member.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg.
Certainly.
Robert Raffel.
Okay. There we go. Good evening, everyone. I assume you've seen my bio, and I will apologize in advance. I'd hoped to meet many of you in Burlington next week, but as I was planning my trip, I was reminded of my granddaughter's 16th birthday. So all I can say is women control my life. In terms of my background, I am a licensed architect and registered engineer, nearly 50 years of experience, and I currently serve on the TFG Governance Committee and the TFEC Executive Committee. During my life's journey, I have owned and managed a small consulting engineering firm, a mid-size AE office, a real estate development construction company. But with all of that aside, timber framing has been my mistress since I was first introduced to her in 1986 by a friend who had and later realized his dream of a timber frame design, fabrication, and erection company. Our collaboration spanned over 20 years and beyond with his business successor until eventually succumbing to the economic downturn or aftershock in 2010. My career unfortunately faded for a few years due to health, but as you can see, I feel like I can live forever. My platonic relationship with timber framing was rejuvenated after moving to Texas in 2014, leading to my involvement with historic preservation of several missions and restoration renovation of the Alamo. I have collaborated on several other projects over the last 4 or 5 years with a Texas, Nebraska-based timber framing company. Currently, I serve as senior project manager with an award-winning regional architectural firm. Texas is and will be my home. But I found that the South Central region is knowledge poor in terms of timber framing. Timber framing, to me, has a heart and soul. The two guys in a truck mentality that I am usually confronted with is a disservice to the art form. If I'm on the board, I guarantee that with my affiliations in architecture, engineering, and the construction trades, it will be my primary purpose to elevate TFG to a household acronym in Texas and the South Central region, with a 3 to 5 year goal of establishing an annual symposium dedicated to timber framing. In that regard, even this year, I've developed 2 national 1-hour webinars on traditional timber framing. The first one went live yesterday and will soon be available as a pre-recorded event. And the second one goes live on October 18th. Both of those are through PDH Academy and are accredited for CEUs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Robert. Karen, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, I'm Kieran Taylor. I took a rapid test this morning and discovered I am suffering from COVID. So I am surprisingly under the weather, usually quite fit, but I'm here and I might not be smiling as much as I usually am, but I'm honored to be included in this process, whatever its results. I got into timber framing like 15 years ago on the Maine coast with Rockport Post and Beam, doing big soulless commercial structures. I say commercial, but I think they were really building for like rich people on the coast. They were houses, but they were just like clear spans and S4S material. I lived in a planer building, just planing fur that was coming from Oregon all day long. The wood was amazing. The fact that you could make money doing something in construction like that was really fascinating to me, but it was pretty clear that that particular way of doing this work was not with quality. So I continued my life from there, got a degree in programming, and came back to the West Coast where I was born and raised. And after a few years in programming, realized I really wasn't suited for work behind a desk. A friend of mine, Colton Allen, was running his own timber framing company in the next town over and needed somebody who could work for him. And I still had my chisels. So I got up with Swiftshore Timberworks about 10 years ago. And for a few years, I worked there. meeting world-class timber framers that had nothing but soul to a fault. The work that they were doing was interesting and always different and always perfect and always had the goals of quality and permanence and the soul of the worker blended with the work in a way that I had noted was missing from my previous engagement with timber framing. I learned how to be a perfectionist in timber framing. I learned how to balance the structural engineering requirements of timber with the aesthetics of the beauty of timber there under the tutelage of Renee Allen and Matt Hunter. Over time, Swiftsure sunsetted its existence as a business, and Matt built up Ashland Post and Beam. I followed Matt into Ashland Post and Beam, where I've been for the last about 5 years, I think we figured the other day, Matt. And I've been happily building custom homes, a lot of barns, little interesting things like trusses. It's been good work, and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with Matt and also Renee at times. She's been part of that, and even Tim Allen, Renee's dad, who was the on-site head of Swiftsure Timberworks, has worked with us in capacity as a draftsman over the years. So it's been an interesting continuation of Swiftsure, both in quality and many of the same faces. But I've also worked as a hired gun for Firmitas, Hi Will, for the Cascade Joinery, and for New Energy Works. Hi, Jonathan. With great pleasure. The ability to work with these other peoples and learn from their techniques, approaches, their values, and how they approach the processes that how they approach solving the problems that we all face was all worth every minute of weirdness of working out of town with people I'd never met before, and would do it again in a heartbeat with the same companies or others for that continued growth of experience and connection with other timber framers. I'm probably going over my time here. Just to wrap it up, I've had experience on nonprofit boards a couple of times as the PTA president at my kids' elementary school for a couple of years, to the education, junior education guy at my church for a couple of years, and did good work and enjoyed it. And I understand how nonprofit boards work and how decisions are made by committee. I could see myself being a valuable member of the TFG board, but I can also see that in all of the candidates that I've seen speak today. So don't vote for me by any means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. Looks like we now have Isaac here. Isaac, are you with us and ready to share? Isaac Salentic.
Can you hear me, Jackson?
I can hear you now. Oh, looks like you're muted again, though.
I'm having connectivity issues. Can you?
Yep, I hear you now. Go right ahead.
My name is Isaac McCoy Salentic. I'm out in Eugene, Oregon, in a grocery store parking lot. Things didn't quite go as planned today. Happens. I first joined the guild in 2005. I was a Heartwood apprentice that summer and went to the Salem Rotary Project that year, as well as the Angola Pavilion. I think in those first two projects, I met almost everyone I've ever worked for in the timber framing. Sorry about that. Guess I'm gonna probably. I'll try again. Can you hear me, Jackson?
Yes, I can hear you, Isaac. You're in and out just a little bit, but have at it.
All right, sorry about that all. So the guild has been a big part of my life. I was on the apprenticeship committee for a while. I've instructed at guild events. I've been a participant at guild events. I've got a lot of friends in the community and definitely some of the mentors in my life, both personally and professionally, have come out of people I've met through the guild. I stepped away from the apprenticeship work a while back and feels like
We lost you, Isaac. All right, maybe Isaac will get a better connection here later and be able to join us again. From here, I'm going to ask a couple of questions and we'll start back at the top with Michael Cuba. And my first question is, as a board member, what would be your priorities for ensuring that we are serving our Timber Framers Guild membership?
I think that's sort of easy. We're, I think, first and foremost, an educational organization. And the Guild has fulfilled its educational mission in a number of ways through conferences, which I had been a part of in the past. I would love to do again. Do the work of the councils. I serve on both TFEC Publications Committee and TTRAG, and through publications for sure. So those are things that the Guild is already doing. And then, as I mentioned, we have now a new frontier, both with Heartwood, which sort of speaks for itself, but also with having the new facility. There have been a lot of discussions already about archiving, about bringing in some of the material that's been floating out in the ether among Guild members. Now there's a home for this stuff. There's a way that we can actually develop a library and offer more for Guild members. So that is particularly exciting. I don't think the Guild has struggled to meet the goals of its mission since 1985. I think it's done it well and better.
Great, thank you, Michael. Will, can you answer the same question? Just as a board member, what are your priorities for serving Guild membership?
Like I said in the intro, my number one priority is education, and I think the Guild does that greatly with the community build projects. I feel the Guild can both build our community as others, the whole purpose behind the community build projects, but we can do that through education, through additional events as well, like Heartwood conferences, rendezvous, and I hope to help institute that across the board. I feel that the apprenticeship training program can be brought in and help tie a lot of these events together. The apprenticeship program can be brought in through all these events as well, and to have a clear, decisive curriculum with all of that, I think will help everybody, both members of our community, both members of the Guild, and then hopefully future members of the Guild, and we can draw them in and teach them all about timber framing.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think Isaac is still working on it. So let's once again jump to you, Greg Mullen.
Yes, I think what's been said, I agree with entirely. And also my priority would be the community's building projects or community service projects. And I see an excellent way to bring people into the guild and also for current guild members to learn and to share. And then Heartwood, I'm very excited and intrigued by this new time for Heartwood and kind of getting folded into the guild and having a new permanent, nice, well, they had a permanent home before, but a new home, I think will open new opportunities. I look forward to helping with that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Greg.
Yes.
And Karen, just what would be your priorities for ensuring that we're serving the membership?
I'm of a like mind with Will Denton about what I think is really valuable about the guild and how it best serves its members. I think the apprenticeship training program is already a structured thing that we put a huge amount of time and energy into. That's really just like one wheel away from rolling down the road, and really offering people structured value and competency and timber framing. That vehicle of passing information, I think, can't be overstated. The fact that all of these professionals have spent so much time over the years putting together a cohesive program that we already have. I probably sound a little frustrated. I have been over the years. I've been with the guild for probably 10 years now. That I haven't seen the apprenticeship program take off more already. And that doesn't say that I haven't been involved with it to the extent that I've been able to. There was an exploratory committee for a little while that I was involved in, and then it just kind of disappeared. So I would love to be involved in the apprenticeship training program. I also think that the projects are an excellent opportunity, like I think I'm hearing from others, to increase public awareness of timber framing as a concept, but also to impact communities with the awesomeness of timber frames in their areas that they can directly benefit from. I would go further with projects and say that projects are an opportunity to teach timber framers how to teach timber framing. And I see Greg nodding. I've known a lot of timber framers that were just brilliant at timber framing. I've not known very many timber framers that were brilliant at teaching. And it is a complicated thing to teach. Projects are an excellent opportunity for timber framers that are good at teaching to steward timber framers that are good at timber framing into those teaching roles, because the ability to teach timber framing is paramount to our goals to serve a broadening membership that will typically be people that are new to timber framing.
Perfect. Thanks, Kieran. I've been jumping around here a little bit and I realized I skipped Robert Raffle. Robert, would you care to speak to this as well?
Certainly, and thank you. Obviously, from what I just said earlier, my focus is Texas and the South Central part of the country, and there's such a lack of knowledge, and there are clients here that are searching for the expertise, both in the design and the fabrication and erection of it. There's just not enough people here to satisfy them. I've been contacted over a dozen times in the last 6 months from clients who had found my name on the TFG website because I was located in Texas, and there's hardly anybody else. I've developed a relationship with Zach Webb, who's a structural engineer affiliated with the testing laboratory at the University of Texas. We've already been discussing of ways that we can possibly get UT involved in assisting the Guild with some of the research projects. And so consequently, you know, it's my goal, since I don't plan to leave Texas before I die, that I can you know, take the mission and the goals of the Guild, amplify the membership in this region, and also extend the knowledge to as many people as I can in the time that I have left on this earth.
Thanks very much, Robert. Robert, maybe my next question I'll direct to you as well. And I know some of us have spoken to these things, some of my questions already in their introductions, but we appreciate your filling in any blanks. Robert, how will your experiences with other nonprofits or organizations or communities cross over and help with the Guild work?
That's an interesting question. And let me answer twofold. In my previous experience back east, and affiliations with universities and cultural centers and other nonprofit agencies that I, assisted in raising funds, contributing myself. That's one side of the coin that I have that experience, been very successful at it. But the other side is that for over 40 years, I've been convincing people to give me money. And basically, I've been convincing them to give me money because I'm good at what I do. I certainly believe in what I do. I believe in timber framing with my whole heart. But more importantly, they trust me. And consequently, they trust me to use their money wisely. And from my perspective, those are key ingredients in any manner of raising funds. And so that's what I will bring to the Guild, is that ability to get people to trust me and to recognize that I'm representing a worthwhile cause.
Thank you so much, Robert. Kieran, how will your experiences with other nonprofits, organizations, or communities help you in your work with the Guild?
I was a secretary for the PTA for my kids' elementary school some years ago, just because it was a role that needed to be filled. And the next year they drafted me to be president, almost against my will. I wound up shaking up the whole organization. Our main fundraiser, drafting off of Robert's discussion of bringing in funds, was like a drunken disaster, like disco night just for the adults. This is for an elementary school. They'd have a big raffle. They would there were horror story. I say horror, but there's another way that you could put that. Stories of those evenings that would happen once a year. And they would make a certain amount of money with their raffles and whatever. This would happen at a bar. There was clearly no children involved. It was not children focused. By the time I was done, 24 months later, we had the Mayfair celebration, which was on the school campus, a sort of Renaissance fair, totally a Renaissance fair with all of the trappings, games, and ticket sales. And we were making 10 times the amount of money. Like, the children got to be part of the process. Like, it just made sense. I did not come up with that. I worked with people that came up with great ideas, and I empowered them to see those ideas come to fruition. I also stood up against the existing power structure to push away the drunk disco night thing and replace it with something that made a lot more sense and was a lot healthier and more consistent with the theme and vibe of an elementary school. So my kid aged out of the elementary school, and so did I from that position, and that was all fine. Being on a PTA board is not the most fun I ever had in my life. Being on a nonprofit board, I think, if you're doing it right, is probably a lot of work and pretty challenging, and requires you to dig deep for patience and find your people communication skills and meet common ground in ways that can be challenging for maybe some of the more stubborn members amongst us. And I can be pretty stubborn, but that was really good experience for me to learn how to do that. Both examine existing structures, find creative solutions, and work with other people that might have very different styles of communicating or very different visions of what is the right way to use resources to serve members, which is what a PTA is doing. And then I went to my church, a Unitarian Universalist church, where they had a lady that ran the educational program, and she'd been doing it for 4,000 years, and the kids were unhappy and the parents were unhappy, and it desperately needed revamping, and we revamped it. We we turned it into a parent-led and managed system that served the children. The parents had direct access. They got their own nightmares and like how to make decision by committee, but they needed to go through that process. And the end result was that we had a system, again, that was consistent with the group, that was serving its members in ways that were more consistent with the vibe and cause of the organization. I do not think that the guild needs to be revamped. I don't think that I would have the skills or the clout to do so if it did. But I am a creative problem solver, and I love to look at existing systems and figure out how they run and why they run the way they do. And I am not a quiet person, as anyone who knows me will attest. If I see a problem, I'll say something about it. If I don't understand something, I will ask about it. And I think that even though I don't have nearly the experience or longevity in the guild as a lot of the other people that are candidates here do, I do have something to offer in terms of that beginner's mind that I think the curiosity with a little bit of nonprofit board experience can offer to reorganizing, or at least doing some critical analysis on a system that's been standing for a long time and may have inefficiencies that people are blind to just because that's how things have always been done or whatever.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Sounds great. Greg,
Yes.
what other experiences will you bring?
Let's see. I help local virgins with a fundraiser they do every year, making a whole bunch of ice cream for an ice cream supper. And I have kind of fallen into, I made an ice cream maker and then started helping them, make a little bit of ice cream, and they're just as a, help a little. And it's turned into, I'm kind of running the ice cream making operation now several years later. I didn't really intend to do that, but I apparently am good at organizing people to get a lot done efficiently and effectively in a short amount of time. And that fits right in with and I suppose I learned a lot of that from our timber framing projects. There's a lot of crossover there.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Greg.
Sure.
I do believe that Isaac was able to phone in, so we'll just toss him in the mix here if we may. Isaac, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Isaac, we're going through some questions that I had put together. First of which was, as a board member, what would be your priorities for ensuring that we're serving membership?
Oh, I would have to imagine we'd have to look at the current priorities and see how I can support. I mean, the guild, the thing that I think about is you're coming into a organization that's been running for a long time. There's lots of balls in the airs and agendas going on. I don't feel any sort of pet project on my mind necessarily. The apprenticeship program is important to me. I was involved in it previously and would like to be involved in some capacity, as it presents itself.
Awesome. I'll go ahead and hit you with the question we're on right now as well. It's how will your experiences with other nonprofits, communities, or organizations help in your work with the Guild? Do you have any crossover experience that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'm on the board of a nonprofit cooking school here in Eugene that my friend started a year ago. It's a new organization. It's been dealing with some of the issues around getting nonprofit status, kind of getting its feet wet, as a group. It's a pretty diverse group. I have some experience talking to people with different viewpoints from different backgrounds.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Will, we're moving back through you here, sir. Do you have any crossover experience that you'd like to share with us, working with other nonprofits, organizations, communities?
I feel like I'd like to start off by saying that Stephen Morrison and I are wearing the same shirt, so I feel like that's all the justification I need. And while on that note, I feel like I bring the strongest stash game to the board. But no, it's my history with the community build projects. and also being incumbent with the board right now, I feel like I would benefit the board greatly with seeing through the next 3 years to continue on with the current track that the board is on. And I feel like the guild is in an amazing spot right now. We have strong leadership. Every member that is running right now, I would love to be on the board, even if that includes with me not being a part of it. I feel like we have such a strong strong board and strong potential board for this. And I feel like that's a great time for the guild, and hope to see that through.
Thanks, Will. Back to Michael Cuba.
The board of the guild was the very first nonprofit board that I had served on, although I had some involvement with other boards previously. But since being on the guild board, I was counting as when you said the question. Currently, I'm serving on 6 other nonprofit boards, and so I've taken what I learned serving with the guild out to now 6 other organizations that I'm serving, and I've learned quite a bit more about just the diversity of board structures and organization structures. And I think maybe the most interesting thing that I've done since being on the guild board is I started a statewide barn grant program in Pennsylvania, and it actually managed to get the state to give money to an organization to give to people to fix up their barns, which is something I didn't see coming, but it happened pretty quickly. And so in terms of crossover, I'm involved with a number of organizations that are timber frame adjacent, things relating to historic preservation, vernacular architecture, and other trade related organizations. So there's a lot of cross communication. The networking is pretty easy. What the guild has to offer is something that people are pretty hungry for. They just might not have direct experience. So I think that the network opportunities are fantastic across several organizations.
Thanks, Michael. And I guess my last question, we'll pick up right where we are with Michael again. What motivates you to work with the guild and to serve on the board of directors at this time? Is there a particular event or?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I served previously, I had been twice elected. I had sort of committed myself to a specific period of time and an amount of effort that I wanted to put in, and not burn out. That was a big goal of mine, was, can I do this? Can I go whole hog working for the board, give it all I can, and still love the guild and want to come back? So clearly the answer is yes. And one of the things I've considered was, time and opportunity. After serving on the board, I've realized there are a lot of talented guild members. There are a lot of potentially capable board members, but not everybody has the time to do it. And I recognize, having served previously, that at the moment, I do have the time. I think I'm in a unique situation where my schedule is incredibly flexible, which allows me to put the time I'd like to into the guild.
Thank you, Michael. Will, what motivates you to serve right now?
What motivates me is the people, the community. The reason I got into the Timber Framers Guild is I started timber framing about 20 years ago on the small derelict island in British Columbia. Got into the craft, got into the people, and haven't looked back. I bought my first set of chisels in 2003. and it's the people, it's the craft. It is, I know I keep going back to it, but education, whether it is educating the people about this or educating within our own community. And we are here to learn more. And that's why I'm sure I'll see a lot of you out in Burlington next week. It's the people, number one and foremost, and the education of the people, whether that's further in our own education or getting them and hooking them all. So
Thanks, Will.
thanks, Jackson.
Isaac, what motivates you to work within service of the Guild at this time?
Oh, I'd have to echo what Will said. I traveled a lot for work there for a while and got to see people pretty regularly in the Guild community, and then for various reasons have not traveled as much. And then in the last year or so have been on the road a little bit again and reconnected with people I haven't seen in a long time and worked side by side with them. And for me, it was just a realization that the Guild is a really big part of my family. My biological family is not my closest people in my case. And I think for me, it's just a time to reconnect, time to get involved again. Like I said, I was involved before to varying degrees with projects and apprenticeship, and just seems like the right time, for me personally to get involved. I've got the energy, I've got the interest, and that's why I put my name in the hat.
Good stuff. Thanks, Isaac. Greg.
Yes. The Guild has always been there for me, and I feel like at this time I can be there for the Guild to help with, like I said before, community projects and more broadly education. Yeah, I think I've thought about being running for the board for a few different times over the years, and I think I'm ready this time.
Very good. Thank you. Robert Raffle, what motivates you to serve at this time?
Oh, just love of timber, which I've always had, but more importantly, I guess the fact that, as I mentioned, my interest has been rejuvenated, and I'm constantly getting calls, and I don't have the time to service everybody. But at the same time, I think being a member of the board will help to elevate our recognition in the region, and consequently start to provide the people and the resources that the public is looking for.
Thank you, Robert. And Karen, what motivates you to serve with the Timber Framers on the board of directors of the Timber Framers Guild right now?
I have always been a person who is oriented towards service. I like to help. It is very fulfilling to me. I don't necessarily see the cash or the clout as the needed outcomes for myself. So nonprofit boards just wind up being where I find myself. That's one prong. The other is that I was requested by existing board members to run. And so somebody saw value in me. I think it was probably that I am opinionated and somewhat articulate at times, and can even stay on task occasionally. So I don't know if I need much more than that. I'm not coming with the experience of some of these people, and I don't know that that would be where my strong suit is anyway. I think being a creative problem solver and being courageous to say what I'm seeing when I'm seeing it, damn the torpedoes, is something that I bring everywhere I go. And I think that would have a home here. I'm motivated to help. That is a nutshell.
Great. Thank you for sharing, and thanks everyone for working with me through my questions and sometimes reiterating what you'd already said, but appreciate it. And it was a good opportunity for sharing. I'd like to open it up now for anyone that is on the call to ask a question of our candidates. You can either do it through the chat, or you can do it through or just raise your hand. I think there's few enough of us here that we should be able to spot it.
Thanks, Jackson, for hosting this.
Ah, thank you, Will. Thanks for saying. It's my biggest Zoom room yet. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to
Yeah, I
share?
got a question. My hand is up. Can you see it?
Actually, I've got a whole bunch of other little screens
Oh,
filling in my screen. So if I can, please just holler. Yes. Please.
sure. This is Jonathan. Any,
Hi, Jonathan. Please share.
yeah, sure. So my question to the candidates, I have two important burning issues. One is, where do you stand on the idea of having a partial board of appointed people so that we can bring in experience and talent, as is so common practice and best practices in most non-for-profit boards, where there's at least a certain percentage, most are all, but let's say a certain percentage of board members who are appointed, so that, you know, we can get skills that frankly I don't see here. So where do we stand on that? And secondly, where do you stand on the idea of the timber framers as needing a strong commercial base and business, so that we can have a place for young timber framers and timber framers wannabe to be able to raise their family with health insurance and all the other stuff. So there's two different questions. I don't mean to, those are the ones that are burning in me anyway.
Can I
Will.
respond?
Yes, please. Will.
So I feel like moving forward, I would like to see the board to be like you mentioned, Jonathan, at least a certain percentage to be appointed, or I look back on history of the guild and where the guild has come from, and so I feel like the election is a strong part of who we are as a guild.
Yeah, me too.
But I do feel that a percentage, and I may be a little lower than what you're expecting, but I feel like maybe out of 4 people out of every year, I feel like 1 person may be appointed, and that could be to achieve some of those goals that we are looking to create and to harvest, and to maintain a strong board and a strong I guess a strong voting percentage of where we go in the future. With your second question, I'm probably going to go a little further away from what you're looking at. You are a powerhouse within the industry, Jonathan. And commercial isn't necessarily where the guild membership needs to be. And so my question, without having any knowledge of this, is where are our numbers? Where is our community within that? You know, we are a small group, and how many people are doing this commercial? And I say this as a commercial builder, but does our focus need to be there, or do we need to bring in and focus more on training timber framers and people in the timber framing industry so that they can be doing commercial work? Are we there quite yet, or are we there in 5 years?
Sorry, I didn't mean commercial work. I meant from being able to run a business, just to be clear.
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry, then I misinterpreted. Yes, I feel like yeah, that should be there, and we should be able to do that within all of our publications, rendezvous, conferences, etc.
I'll try and reiterate the questions, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan. The first question is, how do the candidates feel about the prospect of having at least some positions on the board be appointed so that we can focus on getting skill sets on the board that aren't held within the necessarily a natural timber framer. Question 2, I'm not so clear on. Can you
Yeah, so
reiterate?
why don't we let Chris, question 2 stop for a minute and just do one question at a time? I'm sorry about asking 2 questions.
It's all good. Is there anyone else, any other candidates that are interested in speaking to Jonathan's question about appointed positions on the board?
I will.
Please, Robert.
Okay. Yeah, I as you know, I've been familiar with the guild, although I haven't been a member constantly, but over 20 some years. And my perception then is the same as it is now. It's the guild is a set of very diversified individuals and businesses. And I truly believe that the guild board of directors should to a degree emulate that. But at the same time, all the skill sets that a nonprofit board needs is not necessarily within that group. So I'm all for having appointed members, but I feel that the majority of the board should come from guild members who have been with wood and timber for the most part of their career. What that majority is, that's certainly for further discussion. But I still think that appointed members are necessary to make sure that you have all of the tools necessary to progress the guild.
Thank you, Robert. Would anyone else like to speak to that question?
Sure, I'll hit it.
This is Isaac. I'll take a stab at it.
All right, go ahead, Isaac.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt there. I remember when I first joined the guild, it was all about joinery. It was all about the tools. You know, it's all about the details. And as I've gone in my career and gained more experience and work with other people, you realize that that's just one part of it. So I could see a need for a skill set outside of the guild. I'd say I'd want to hear, you know, again, as an outsider, not up on the day-to-day runnings of things, you know, I'd want to hear from the group why that's necessary and understand it more before I took a position on it. But I would just say, you know, it's good to reach outside of your group for, you know, perspective ideas that may not exist in your world. And certainly we're an excellent group of people. And there's certainly more to learn from people outside of our group.
Thanks, Isaac. Greg, you had some thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, just a few. I think the elected board is very important. Elected from the membership. I do think if there were a direction the guild was trying to go or the board wanted to go and they saw a deficiency in the skills party there, that it could be useful to have somebody appointed that brought those skills. But without knowing more or thinking about it more, I don't think I would advocate for that just right off. I think it could be a useful tool on occasion.
Thanks, Greg.
I would chime in. I think what Will said about, you know, 1 out of 4, something like that, I don't think 50-50 would be needed or appropriate from what I've seen of board operations and functionality. But I think that in a nonprofit board, you often wind up with a glaring hole that can't be filled by a vote process by people that don't have their finger on the pulse of how the nonprofit board and organization are running, which I think is perhaps what Jonathan's speaking to, that like guys that are concerned with keeping their businesses going and keeping their guys employed, or being a guy that is keeping himself employed, doesn't know what the finer needs are of somebody with legal expertise or accounting expertise, and how that might not be fulfilled by the elected board members. And, you know, elections wind up being to some extent popularity contests. I would be shocked if Will did not get elected to a second term. And not because you're not skilled, Will, but because you're a very popular guy. And that is to say that I have seen nonprofit boards struggle and organizations therefore struggle because they didn't have key critical skill sets. And I think the ability of the group to have people that do have their pulse on the inner workings to make decisions to plug a hole, not 50%, I don't think, but some percentage would be appropriate. And if you really don't like it, then you can protest. And this isn't some evil corporation. We will be listening to protestation. I surely hope. I plan to protest a bit myself. I think there's merit in having some element of appointed position.
Thanks, Kieran.
Kieran, can I comment on that? Because I do feel like that is, I think, probably some of the basis of why Jonathan brought this question up, is that at times these elections are a popularity contest. And I know that we've talked with previous people in the past that have come on to and run for election, and they feel like it is strictly that. And I feel like it should be more than that. We need to look at the sole qualifications of our board members and not just run it as a popularity contest.
Thanks, Will. Any other candidates that want to speak to this?
I will. I note first that we're all here on this call, and this organization got where it is through an elected board. Since 1985, we've been electing our leaders. I've been very involved with governance since 2015 and looking at the bylaws and the policies relating to voting and how the board is chosen. And so I'm familiar with the evolution of the policy, and it's been pretty consistent with the Guild. I've heard the argument before that there are holes that need to be filled, specific talents that might not be particularly electable, not things to run on, not things that win you popularity. I would note that there is nothing that prohibits the board from hiring anybody that it needs. You need legal advice, you hire a lawyer. You need an accountant, you hire one. And the Guild has done these things. And also that expecting somebody with talents like those in particular, that they would want to serve regularly on the board might be a little burdensome or cumbersome, which also there's another possibility, which is there's nothing preventing the Guild from having an advisory board that's appointed. And an advisory board could be a lesser obligation. You could bring a pool of talent that you reach out to specifically when you have questions that are related to those people. That's where I'm at on it.
Thank you, Michael. If there's no more to speak on this topic at this time, does anybody else have a question they'd like to present?
I do.
Please, Christine, share with us.
Yeah. Well, with the Guild embarking on this new adventure of having a permanent location or a location out of which you're doing business, what changes do you see that the Guild will need to make, or what this is you could speak to changes or pros and cons that you see in this arrangement with the new 299 Pratt Road facility?
I am allergic to cats, so I don't know if I could teach there. But I see the Pratt Road facility being a wonderful place for Heartwood, and being able to bring in year-long teaching, I think, is a strong benefit for Heartwood. And I think that was one of the big detractors of the previous location at the home Heartwood has always been at. But I feel like moving forward, it's a new address. It has strong backing. It has all these wonderful attributes to be able to do this year round, not necessarily in a physical location, but also with the new digital learning as COVID has brought upon us. So I think we have a strong future with Heartwood. And thank you for everything that you've done and given for this, and allowing the guild to be able to, be able to do this there. Thanks, Christine.
Our pleasure.
One thing that I have been quite hopeful of with having a new home is knowing that the materials of the guild have been boxed up and moved with each change of leadership. I can't think of how many times that all of the files have been boxed up and moved since 2012 across the country, back and forth, each time losing a box or two here or there. I have at least 20 of those boxes, and I know a lot of people who have other boxes that have trailed off. But it's created a bit of an administrative headache for staff in having incomplete records and having to reorganize or try to piece together the operations and the history of the guild, and be so reliant on, I don't know if Brenda is still on the call, but people with institutional memory that you just have to reach out to all the time to say, what's the precedent for this, that, or the other. So the fact that there's, truly a permanent home and an opportunity to really organize should, over time, really ease the burden of the staff and the administration and allow the guild to use those materials to its advantage.
Thanks, Michael. Does anybody else want to comment to Christine's question about the guild and the new Pratt Road facility? Greg.
Yes. I've been concerned about the guild office moving here, there, and everywhere over the last several years. And I think that Pratt Road location is the right place in the world, kind of in the middle of timber framing in the US. And I think that Heartwood as an anchor, it will be a good thing. I mean, can we say it's permanent? I hope so, but it seems a lot more permanent than the previous offices have seemed to me.
Great, yeah. Hear that. Anyone else?
This is Isaac.
Hi, Isaac. Go for it.
I think there's been well, we have a geography issue, right, with the guild being spread out over the entire country and beyond. So I think there will be maybe some need at some point to nod to the West Coast, even though our numbers are smaller historically. I'm very excited about the prospect of Heartwood moving. I was a Heartwood graduate. Will was a big part of shaping the course of my life, and I'm glad that that tradition that he started can continue on and grow and change as it needs to. So I'm excited about the facility, and I think we just need to keep working on how to reach out across the large geography that our members live in.
Hear that. Thank you. Any other candidate want to speak to this?
I would add to what Isaac said about the West Coast timber framers, that there are certainly fewer of us, though those numbers are growing. I often see classes at Heartwood I would like to experience, and certainly classes that I would recommend that my friends and peers out here experience, but it's really too far away and too far around Robin Hood's barn to seriously suggest for myself or others. And that's just the nature of like it being in the middle of traditional North American timber framing country. Certainly understandable, and I'm glad that it exists. I think that it should, but it's inspiring to me, that structure and its heritage, in terms of developing something similar on the West Coast, which is obviously a very long-term vision and project. But I think that there is space for something like that. I think that there is need for more education on these crafts that we hold so dear. We value timber framing for a reason. And there's certainly tons of people on the West Coast that love wood, love solving problems with wood, and timber framing already has a home and heart here, whether they know it or not. So I think that I would say that that I find it inspirational for the future, and I think that that's good. I think that being visionary and being ambitious with ideas of growth, however the realities may fall over time, are part of what we need to be doing.
Thanks, Kieran. And we are working on, ensuring that we've got teaching and learning opportunities that are mobile as well, because yeah, we can't all just be in one place. We're spread quite far. Will, did you have another thought that you wanted to share on this before we move on to the question?
Yeah, just real quick. I think that's exactly what Heartwood will be and will be in the future with the current board track. And whether that's a physical location, digital location, there is Heartwood, which is now the Guild. And I know that was a big transition within my last term on the board, is seeing how Heartwood went from what Will Beamer has been doing for the last as long as we've known Heartwood, that was what Will Beamer has been doing, and to the Guild's acquisition of Heartwood, and the future of Heartwood will now be something that can be done nationwide, whether it is in a physical location. And I look at what Autumn did this last couple months ago with the Rendezvous in Corvallis, and how we can take the Heartwood name, the Heartwood brand, and the Guild's brand, and move that forward. And then I hope to see that also in a digital format, and maybe see how we can do that and more remote, and do these weekly live events and bring the Heartwood brand to that. I view Heartwood as a educational brand of the Guild, and how can we do that nationwide, both in person, but also in a digital format as well.
Thanks, Will. Jonathan, would you be willing to reiterate the question, your second question for us, so we can get some perspectives on that?
You're suggesting I need to be more clear. Okay.
No, I think
I'll give it a try.
I'm easily befuddled, maybe. No, it's just 2 questions, and I'm really working on one time here, man.
Again, from a long view, at one point there's always been a certain dichotomy, and I think it's a healthy and logical and good dichotomy between people pushing for commerce and solid business and the importance of an industry, along with, and I'm one of the old guys and feel the craft is what is the heart of the industry. It's why I managed to hire some of the best people I know and work with them, and why now we're an employee-owned company, and how exciting that is, because the craft is so great. But craft people who are living in a tent encampment without health insurance struggle to be able to survive. And I'm sort of being crazy in my saying that, but the truth is, I'm just wondering how these candidates feel about the fact that, you need some businesses to help make a healthy craft, and what the relationship therefore is between the two. How's that better, Jackson?
Yes.
I don't know what my question is. Maybe just what.
How
do they feel?
Are any of our candidates ready to respond to that?
Sure. I think they're very complementary, as you pointed out in restating the question, that the larger businesses or organizations support the smaller craftsperson people, and the smaller people can grow from the working with the larger businesses. Or maybe I didn't put that together exactly right, but I think they're complementary, and you lose a lot if you lose one.
Will, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I feel that going into that also is that, you know, part of the guild and part of the reason I joined the guild when I did was, you know, I joined the guild in a era where health insurance was not a thing, and health insurance was not thought of within the trades industry. And I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I need health insurance to survive. But we have that, and then we have a living wage, which I feel like is another thing that I fight for within our industry. And I hope, you know, I know that a lot of faces that I've seen on here, you know, within this discussion tonight, that we've worked with and we've worked together with, and a living wage is hopefully what we've achieved with that. And living wage, I feel like, is a strong part within this industry, and we need to avoid doing things as favors, as friends, as to just build our industry. We need to be doing this for a profit, and we need to be doing this for a living wage.
Thanks, Will.
Thanks, Jackson.
Would anyone else like to speak to this? We're down to about 10 minutes left before we hit our 90-minute mark, which would be nice to keep this meeting inside of. Yes, Kieran?
I'll take a stab at it. And at the risk of ruffling some feathers, I think there's a fundamental issue underlying the idea that we need to take care of our employees by making sure that we're offering health insurance. As anyone who's offered health insurance or been offered health insurance knows, in America, there's 4,000 different flavors, and most of them are really bad. I'm glad that some of the larger companies are offering health insurance, and that people that need it, though really we all need it, have access to it. The fact is that the US obsession with tying healthcare access to who you work for, or if you can work, is fundamentally flawed. And I think that it would behoove the Guild, at the risk of becoming a political entity, to lobby the people in power, for whom it makes sense to lobby, for universal health care, or a public option in Medicaid, or some relief for the people that are trying to be craftsmen and trying to care about what they do with their short, beautiful, singular lives, that don't have them selling themselves out to the corporation that can keep them alive or keep their children alive. And, you know, I don't have type 1 diabetes, but I could next year. And, you know, Matt is absolutely awesome to work for, but he can't afford to provide health insurance with as expensive as it is in America. And if he could, it would probably be piss poor health insurance because of the way things are in America. So I think that we're really throwing duct tape on the side of a sinking ship with the health insurance concept. I think a living wage and then sending people into the marketplace the way that it has been renovated a little bit might be a better solution. But what is a living wage, especially with diesel pushing $6 a gallon where I'm at and has been there for well over a year now? What's a living wage when the cheap bird seed or the cheap chicken food is 3 times what it was 1 year
It does
ago?
open itself up to much broader questions. You're right.
Well,
Kieran.
I'll wrap it up, but the bottom line is it's fantastically expensive just to survive from one day to the next right now. And I don't know that health insurance is at all the whole picture of how a corporate entity which was the original question, is taking care of its employees. I think the wage is perhaps the better question. But America's unique in the way that we tie our ability to survive together with our benefits package for employment, and it's problematic.
Indeed. Any other candidate wish to speak to this question? All right. We have just 5 minutes or so left here. If there's anyone on the call that has anything else.
I think Michael was trying to speak.
Oh, Michael, I'm
Saw a
sorry.
hand from Michael.
Sorry, I put my hand up. At first I thought you couldn't see hands, and then suddenly you could see hands, and then you couldn't see hands again, but that's okay.
Well, I have a narrow band of hands I can see. So if anybody sees a hand, if you see something, say something, please help me out
Yeah,
here.
fair enough.
All right, there you are. Now you're front and center.
I don't have a lot to say on the matter, except that I do remember, being in my early 20s, saving up for packs of ramen noodles for, being a timber framer and spending all my money on tools and health insurance. Boy, that wasn't even a thought. But I will say I have a great deal of respect and admiration for the bigger companies in the Timber Framers Guild that have shown some of us just getting started what the possibilities are. And I appreciate early on when I was in the Guild, there was even a conversation, a suggestion about being able to get health insurance through the Timber Framers Guild, which was an interesting concept. That conversation fizzled out about 15 years ago. But I particularly appreciate that the bigger businesses in the Guild have been so willing to share little bits of the recipes for success. And I know one of those key things has been retention. How do you hang on to great employees? You hire good people, you train them, and then they go away and they start their own timber frame companies. And I think Jonathan and others have really shown how some of these bigger companies really can do a lot to encourage people to stick around and make a career of it. And so they're showing us a model. I think there's great value in that. And I really appreciate the willingness to communicate openly about what works.
Thank you, Michael. Any other thoughts on this? Hands I'm not seeing. Speak now or forever hold your peace, or hold your peace for now anyhow. Unless anybody has any more questions, I would like to give a big statement of gratitude to you all for showing up. Any other questions for this evening? Robert. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that Kieran earlier had talked about a lot of raffles, and I want to confirm that I'm not related to any of them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the clarity. I was looking for that. All right. The election opens on the 17th of October and closes on the 17th of November. And for those of you that are able to make it to Burlington, we really look forward to seeing you. And for those of you that are here, yes, Will.
I don't know. I know that we finally have Isaac on board, and could Isaac wrap up his intro that bandwidth so really interrupted on him, and maybe he could give a 2-minute half intro.
Sounds quite fair. Isaac, would you like to give us the intro?
I could give you the intro at the end. We'll call it an outro.
Okay.
Thank you, Isaac.
I think I said a few times, the Guild has been my family for a long time. Right now I'm a general contractor based out of Eugene, Oregon, trying to figure out the small business thing. Doing timber when I get it, traveling when it makes sense. I'm really looking forward to, trying to reconnect with my Guild family by serving on the board. And yeah, I think that's all I want to say now. Thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Isaac, and good looking out, Will. I do believe that.
Like I mentioned before, I feel like the candidates here are an amazing bunch of good. I think they're all guys on this one, unfortunately, but we have an amazing group of people that I'd love to run against.
Good stuff. All right. With that, I'm going to, unless Bo or Eric have anything to share, I think we can wrap up our candidate Q&A. And I thank you all for showing up, and feel free with any further questions to reach directly to the candidates.
I would just add, thank you, Jackson, for doing a great job, and hope to see everybody in Burlington for our, Eric tells us this is our 88th conference. So I don't know who's been to all of them, maybe Charlotte. Anybody? So
It'll be my
anyway,
first in a while.
thank you all for coming out, and hopefully to see everybody in Burlington.
Yeah, thank you. Look forward to being in Burlington.
Awesome.
Take care,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Great to see you. Bye.